Bill Crisp from K2C Wildlife Encounters. Thank you for joining me today on Brite Cast. I see you have a little friend with you today. Tell me a little bit about yourself and about my boy Maximus there.
Okay. Bill Crisp, with K2C Wildlife Encounters, born and raised here in Manassas, and now living in Bristow. Joined with Max here, or Maximus. This is one of our native species of snakes that we have in the state of Virginia. This is the guy that you're going to see majority of the time in your yard, or people are calling to have them removed.
Okay.
They're also the ones that
What's his breed?
It's a eastern, or now considered central rat snake. The classification for the state just changed here recently. So this is your central rat snake, your longest species of snake in the state. They can get up to upwards of 6.5 to over 7 feet.
Wow.
And he's about six.
Pretty.
He's about 6 feet from tip to tip.
That's awesome.
So, yep.
Can I pet him?
You can.
Oh, man. Here we go.
Get him over here off the mic here.
Oh, my goodness. This is my first time petting a snake.
Yeah, a lot of people will say that snakes are slimy, or
just because they
look just because of the shiny gloss on it, but
yeah.
It's not. They're not slimy at all. Their scales are, the snake's anatomy in general is, all basically vertebrae wrapped in muscles, and then wrapped in scales, and but they're not slimy at all. They're cool to the touch.
Yeah.
Snakes, because they're cold-blooded, they can't regulate their body temperature like we can. So if they're in a cooler environment, it sometimes, makes it feel like it's slimy, but it's not. They're not.
How long have you had him?
He is about 14 or 15 years old. He was a
wow.
rescue. He got hit by a car, and then he was rehabbed. And then for this rehab, he was out so long that they couldn't release him. So there's a law in Virginia that you can't release wildlife after a certain time being in captivity.
Okay.
So when we can't do that, we'll just use them for education. So we'll try to take them. If they're rehabbers that can't release, they'll call us. They'll call state parks and things like that to see if anybody's interested in education and using them for education. Yeah. So that way they can live out their life,
So what does he eat?
Mainly this guy feeds on rats, like small rats, but
hence the name.
Yeah. But in the wild, they probably consume more birds and bird eggs, baby birds and stuff like that, because of it's an easy meal for them to climb up into a tree. These guys are awesome climbers. They can climb pretty much anything. They can climb the side of your house, the siding or brick, to get to where they want. And they probably consume more birds than rodents a season, just because it's a little bit easier of a meal. But they'll eat rats, mice, moles. They can eat squirrels. One this size here could eat a squirrel. Sometimes small rabbits.
Okay.
Things like that. So, yeah.
So, do they get confused for black snakes?
Yeah, so that's the thing. We're trying to phase out the term black snakes for these guys, because we have several species of black snakes in Virginia. We have the eastern rats, now central rats, which are this guy. And then we have our eastern kings, which are black with a striped pattern. And then we have our northern black racers that look pretty much like this. They've got a little bit of different characteristics of eyes and things, but they're fully black. So when someone calls us and says, "Hey, I have a black snake in my yard," I have to ask that next question is what does it look like?
Right.
Because with racers, they do get pretty long, just like these guys, but they are super fast. They're the fastest species we have in Virginia. And if I'm 20 minutes away, chances are I'm probably not going to get there in time. These guys will actually hang out because they could care less.
Yeah, he seems pretty chill.
People have had them in their house where one guy told me he was sitting at his kitchen table, and the pull down from his attic, snake came down from there. He saw it. He was watching it. And then it came up to him in the kitchen, just kind of looked at him, turned around, went right back up.
Just no interest.
It really didn't care.
Yeah. Well, and that's, I was telling you I was kind of freaked out. But, I'd like to be more educated, so I only freak out about the ones I need to freak out about. Right? Like, if they're just there killing mice, then that means I don't have to pay, another pest person to get rid of the mice.
That's right.
And
there's also laws in Virginia with wildlife in general that you can't relocate wildlife in Virginia.
Okay.
So with snakes, especially these guys and racers, garter snakes, things that are harmless, we try to get people to just leave them alone.
Yeah.
They'll move on. These guys they're constantly moving around looking for food and places to go. They're not going to hang out. So if you have one in your backyard one afternoon, it's going to be gone by the evening time.
Yeah.
A lot of times. So we try to get people, and it's gotten a lot better. I mean, in the last 5 years, we used to have people just come get it or come kill this thing. Now they're just texting and saying, "What is this?" and then leaving it alone.
Yeah. Well, that's nice too that you can educate, because like, if it's not venomous, why kill it? Just get it. We had one in our garage. We used, I was telling you, we lived across town, and it was like on a farm area, so we'd encounter black snakes. It might have been, a rat snake potentially, but the initial thought was to kill it if it was in the house.
Yeah.
And it was before internet and stuff like that. But
and we get calls for snakes in basements and garages, attics, crawl spaces, things like that. And it's just, snakes are highly food motivated. So they're constantly looking for food. If not that, they're looking for a place to be secure.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, dark basements, and they, may hang out there because they've been looking for a food source. Maybe there isn't a food source there, but they've decided, well, you know what, this is a place where
hang out
no
for
one's
a bit.
going to bother me.
Yeah.
Especially in the summertime when it gets hot, they're looking for places to cool down.
Yeah.
Things like that. And then even in the fall when it starts to get cooler, if they're inside of your house, they could hang out for the winter because they know it's, it's going to be warm here and I can just continue to hang out.
My parents there at that property, they had one that was up under the siding, and they found it like popping its head out and stuff. Probably close to that size.
Yeah.
But there was like a space in between like the second level that it was able to crawl up into, and they didn't kill it. They just got someone to come and get it, which is good.
They're completely harmless. It's just more people don't know much about them. In my generation, they were taught to hate snakes, fear snakes, kill snakes.
Yeah, I mean, and there's not to get religious about it, but that whole thing there, you're kind of taught from a young age that snakes are bad.
Right.
Instead of that they're some of God's creatures. I'm not even that religious anymore, but if that is the truth, then they deserve you being nice to them just as much as any other animal does.
Yeah.
So how did you kind of get into? Was it always like a thing that you had snakes growing up?
Well, no, I actually, so I've been into snakes and reptiles in general since I was probably about 7.
Okay.
Bringing stuff home to my mom. My mom was not a snake person. She loved turtles. Her and I shared a passion for box turtles.
Okay.
And I think that's probably where I got the turtle interest from, was because, back then we didn't understand or know that, you can't bring wildlife home with you. And my mom would find one on the road and she's like, "Oh, I'll take it home," and next thing you know, we got all these turtles at our house that we shouldn't have. The good news is we kept them outside where they belong.
Right.
But, so no snakes. She's like, no snakes, no reptiles in the house. So I kind of got into fish, and I was, probably by the age of 14, I was a pretty hardcore freshwater fish hobbyist. So I had, the full basement. I lived with my mom. It was just my mom and I. I had the full basement. I probably had 20, 25 tanks, aquariums set up. And I always had to go big on things. So it wasn't like, oh, just go get some goldfish.
Like this whole basement space you'd have? Yeah.
I'd have like red belly piranhas, black piranhas, arowanas, pacus, Oscars, things that got big that ate other fish.
Yeah.
I was infatuated with stuff like that. But I was probably doing that at 14 and got into it. It's not an easy hobby. I'm glad I got out of it because it's very expensive.
Very
it's
expensive.
A lot of work.
Yeah.
And then once I got moved out and got married, I purchased my own first bearded dragon, and then
freedom.
Yeah, and then started getting snakes, and not necessarily. I had a collection at one point of about 40 snakes.
Oh wow!
Then I started downsizing and started focusing on more of the native and education here, because we have so many other companies around that do education on just snakes in general.
Yeah.
But I wanted to focus on the native stuff. This is where, people really need to focus.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're saving snakes' lives, really, and making people less scared. I mean, like I said, I was a little nervous, but I'm way less nervous seeing how he's just chill.
He is.
Yeah, he's just chill.
I mean, they're used to it. He's used to it, but in the wild, these guys are
Yeah.
a little bit more. I use the word defensive, not aggressive.
Right.
Try to get people to stop using the aggressive term. I mean, you imagine you being a snake at this size and being approached by someone my size.
Right.
Obviously, you're going to defend yourself, even with them striking or biting.
I mean, they can't use guns. They don't have hands.
They can't do any of that stuff.
Right.
So their bite is about all they can. They can flare their head to look venomous, right? But outside of the bite, they'll musk you, which is releasing a really foul stench from the rear, just to kind of get predators away. Or if you pick it up, they'll do it occasionally. Max is so used to being handled and around kids and stuff. He's super chill. A lot of times these guys are a little bit more defensive. But
how long does it take to kind of get them used to having an owner or, being domesticated, I guess you'd say?
Snakes are pretty good. I mean, it depends on the species, honestly. Anything wild, obviously, we're not taking things out of the wild. People will come and ask about having a pet snake, and I'll point them to, breeders that I know or familiar with. And then a lot of times captive bred snakes are a lot easier to get tamed down than anything wild or anything that might be wild that's exported over, et cetera. But some snake species never, you never get to handle them that well. Right. Just because their temperament is
what are some of those?
Tree boas are like that. Native ones, water snakes, and people do keep water snakes captive bred. They're just very
like moccasins.
No, they're so northern water snakes that we have here are compared a lot of times with cottonmouths or water moccasins because they do look similar, but we don't have any water moccasins that inhabit this far north. So you're looking like Chesterfield and Virginia Beach, Richmond, south. They thrash a lot, which is why I don't use them for education or even exhibits, because you get too close to the tank, they thrash a little bit. The whole point is try not to scare people away from it.
Yeah, exactly.
And using snakes like that, but there are some that just don't really tame down. But for the most part, corn snakes, milk snakes, ball pythons, boas, and things like that people can get as pets, they do tame down pretty well. But you have to handle them, pretty often.
Yeah. So, is this a kind of snake that would kill a copperhead?
No. So these guys, they're their counterparts, the northern black racer. Okay. So most people say black snakes will keep copperheads away or eat copperheads. These guys do not eat other snakes. And if they do, it's a rare case. In fact, these guys, the rat snakes and copperheads, corn snakes, etc., they'll burmate together in the wintertime.
Oh, really?
In their own, little nooks and things like that when they go to hibernate. So snakes burmate versus hibernate.
What's that
obviously mean? So the difference is like a bear can go to sleep for the winter.
Yeah.
Right. Where snakes, in this area where it warms up in February, we'll have a couple days in the upper 50s.
Yeah.
Snakes, they don't sleep. They shut their metabolism down, their body down a little bit. They shut everything down just for the winter. They don't have eyelids, so they can't shut their eyes. So they don't go to sleep like we do.
Just kind of like a coma or trance sort of
it's
thing?
just like kind of slowing down, just being super lazy. They won't eat, they won't drink. But as soon as they sense that warm temperature, they will come out, and we get calls year round in Virginia for snakes that'll come out if it's warmer. They'll come out, maybe get some water, and then they'll go on about their business. But the racers, these guys won't, but racers will pretty much eat anything they can overpower and eat, including copperheads. They're actually immune to the venom as well.
Oh, okay.
But again, these guys here are going to be looking for that, that rat or bird or potentially a squirrel.
How is this like? So you're turning into a nonprofit soon? Yeah.
So K2C Wildlife Encounters, as we are today, I guess, started back in 2001. It was basically a group of friends. I have two other partners. That basically are into the same interests as I am as around snakes and reptiles. We've been doing this for 20, 25 years.
Wow.
All three of us. And they're both teachers, great partners. They've been, I've learned a lot from them because they've had other experiences with other things, just like I've had as well. And, we decided it was time to, well, if we're helping the communities and kind of doing this separately, then maybe we join forces and then cover as much of Northern Virginia as we possibly can.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's where we started K2C in 2001, so right after COVID, roughly. And then
2021, you mean?
Yeah, 2021.
Yeah.
And then just went from there. Started it out slow. We weren't really trying to make a business. I mean, a lot of the things we do was, even as an LLC, we weren't charging for a lot of what we do because we were about the snakes. Most people, when they see a price tag or a price or cost or stuff, they won't call maybe. And we just didn't want to, deter people from doing that because there was a cost about it. Like I do educational things, but I'm charging a pretty minimum amount.
Right.
It's about getting out and doing that education.
Yeah.
So we just slowly kind of built that, and we've added 3 more people to help out, and we're just trying to get people to.
And you have people like located in different counties?
Yeah, we've got, so I'm in
access.
the Bristow, Gainesville area. We have another guy out here in Gainesville, Haymarket. We have one in Old Town Clifton.
Okay.
Another one further in Manassas towards Woodbridge. One out in the Reston, Fairfax area, and in Arlington. So we try to stretch our wings.
Big area.
Yeah.
So have you had any like actual times that you've been scared going on a call, or any of your colleagues?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we so as far as dealing with snakes and things like that, if it's a copperhead call or something like that, it's a different scenario than it is something like this.
Yeah, absolutely.
On days that I do get copperhead calls, there's been times where I'm not feeling well, or I'm stressed out from my day job, and I'm not focused on it. At that point, we won't mess with venomous at that point, because if you're not fully focused on what you're doing, you take a risk of getting bit, and obviously it's not good for me or any of our partners. I mean, because copperheads are mildly venomous, but they still have an effect. They can put you in the hospital. Bites are expensive for your insurance.
Yeah.
And things like that. So when I'm not focused or stressed out, I'll call somebody else, one of my partners, and say, hey, I'm not doing this. Can you go do this?
Right.
And that way we remain focused. So I don't really put myself in positions where I'm going to be endangering myself or anybody else. I'll call on a partner to help. As far as being afraid, no, not necessarily. I mean, I think we've been doing this long enough where, I've kind of have an idea of the scenarios that I'm going into, whether it's
what's like an example of catching a copperhead for, would it be in a house or someone's backyard or? Yeah.
So we had one about 3 weeks ago, not too far from my house, that was just hanging out on the front sidewalk. It was after night. It was after dark. Of course, they become more active at dawn and at nighttime. Copperheads aren't super big snakes, so they can be missed, and they camouflage really well, especially when you have not cleaned up the landscaping around your house. The old leaves, they can camouflage with that. This one specifically was underneath a bush, and when you do those types of calls, you have to be careful. You want to make sure you have your equipment. So we use snake boots, right? We're required to do snake boots. We use tongs and hooks. We have secured locking buckets with lids. And then flashlights and things if we're doing that stuff at nighttime.
Yeah.
Copperheads are known for climbing a little bit. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
They can climb up into the bushes. So obviously I have to be careful with how I'm approaching that bush.
Right.
Because if that copperhead has made its way up a little bit in that bush and I'm putting my head down near the bush, I don't want to take a tag in the
Don't
face.
wear a face mask either.
Right.
Yeah.
So when people call, we tell them just to keep an eye on it.
Make sure you still can see it.
It will move. I mean, you move for a split second and take your eyes off of it, that snake's going to be gone. So I tell them just to keep your eyes on it. Don't get near it. Keep a light on it if you can. A lot of times when you shine lights on copperheads, they'll just freeze.
Oh, really?
And just stay there. But then they'll go on about their business, and then it's just trying to find it. So if you have a lot of landscaping, if you have a cluttered garage, those are the worst.
Yeah.
Because
you're trying to leave the door open.
Something. Yeah, you're trying to find a needle in a haystack, basically. You're walking in, you're like, there's no way I'm going to find this thing.
Yeah.
And then just making sure that you're keeping people away, especially a lot of times if you have copperheads during the daytime and people know about it that are around in the neighborhood, they're coming up because they want to see it. So then you have a crowd.
Oh, okay.
You want to keep dogs away,
Yeah.
Kids and things like that until that snake is secured in the bucket. So
Right.
we use tongs. We don't handle anything free-handed that's venomous. Everything's used either a hook or tong and then put in the bucket and sealed up.
And where do you take them afterwards?
So relocating is tricky. We can relocate because we're certified and licensed through the state, so we can relocate snakes, but we try to keep them within the same area, like within a half a mile or less, right?
Yeah.
So if there's a wooded area nearby, we'll take it out as far as away from people as we possibly can, but not taking it out too far to where it could impact the animal. Because with relocation, there's a couple of things. One, you're taking the animal out of a habitat that they're used to being in.
Yeah.
Right. Which can stress the animal out. And then you're also taking a snake and putting it into a different habitat that could potentially have like a fungal disease or something like that. You're now contaminating that new environment. Right. So you have to be real careful. Northern Virginia is very tricky because of all the construction and building.
Yeah, exactly. So if a copperhead shows up around here, there's not really anywhere safe to relocate it.
Yeah, and sometimes we have to take it out just a little bit further just to get it away from
Right.
people in general.
Yeah.
But we try to keep it as adjacent to where we picked it up, so that way they can continue to go on. And then some people, will call about copperheads and they're like, yep, just wanted to identify it was a copperhead. I'm okay with it. It's on a portion of the property or around my house that I don't really access a lot. Mm-hmm. And they'll just leave it alone.
And it's probably going to go somewhere anyway.
Yeah, and it'll stay away. And as long as they're fine with it, then, we just try to educate them as much as we can so they have enough information in case they were to come in contact with it again. We have about 7 or 8 people probably a season that are bitten by copperheads. Either in the hands because they're landscaping and they don't see them.
Right.
Or they're out taking their dog out or taking their trash out at nighttime, barefooted or in flip-flops. And they get tagged on the foot.
So wear your snake boots
Yes.
at night when you're taking your garbage
just
out.
wear shoes in general. I mean, the snakes, copperhead fangs aren't huge. So if you have a nice solid shoe on.
They normally go for the foot?
Anything close. I mean, it's usually most of what we see is, or people that we come in contact with that have been bitten have more of a below the ankle, into the foot or toe, or in the finger.
Because they step on them, or they get just way too
They
close?
step on them, they get too close. I mean, most snake bites are occur when people are trying to mess with them, or move them, or try to kill them. So we try to keep people not to just leave it alone. Let us come get it because a lot of things can happen. If you're trying to kill that snake, and it's illegal in the state to kill any snake, unless it's causing harm.
Don't tell my grandpa that.
That's what I said.
That he's gone and buried now. So
yeah, my grandparents were the same way. Yeah.
So like, what's a common misconception about snakes? How many? Well, that's one question, and then also how many venomous ones are even in this area?
So in the state of Virginia, we have got 34 species of snakes, and out of that 34, 30 of them are venomous. Now, a lot of people will use the word poisonous as they describe. So even things like that, I'll correct people.
Oh, yeah.
They think it's annoying, but again, get the terminology right,
Right.
so we can at least educate people correctly.
Yeah,
right?
noted.
So then venomous, we have 3. We have the eastern copperhead that is all over the state of Virginia, all over this area. And then we have the timber rattlesnake that occupies more in the central part of Fauquier County, around that area.
Okay.
Bull Run Mountain and west.
Okay.
So they're not here in the immediate. However, people that live in Haymarket, that live at the base of the mountain, have called us for timbers in the last couple of years to come out and remove and take them back up. But the copperhead is the one you're going to see the most. The northern cottonmouth or water moccasin is a southern Virginia snake. So it's more They started seeing sightings in Chesterfield, but more Richmond south, Virginia Beach area. If you're canoe and kayak and things like that in that area, chances are you may see a cotton.
We had a creek on the property too that we would always go play in. So we were just seeing water snakes.
Yeah, the northern water snakes.
Yeah, they
those
weren't black.
No, they look pretty close. They're both kind of fat-bodied snakes. They've got a little bit of pattern, but some of that pattern fades as they age. But they are different. They've got some characteristics. Not that you should get this close, but water snakes have like vertical lines on their mouth up and down, where cottonmouths have them horizontal across the eye and mouth.
Okay.
But with copperheads and cottonmouths, when they're babies, so about the first year, they have a yellow tip tail, really bright yellow tip tail. So if you're around here and you see a baby snake or a small snake with a yellow tail, don't pick it up.
Yeah. I wasn't planning on it. It took me enough to just be able to pet this guy.
But copperheads in general, I mean, IDing them is easy. They've got, they're more of a tan brownish copper color.
And like the triangle head, that's what I was always told.
Well, they have a Hershey kiss pattern on the side. Looks like Hershey kisses, and it alternates all the way down their body. The head thing and the identifying a venomous snake by the head shape or the eye, people talk about the slits in the eyes. Well, pit vipers do. They have those slits in the eyes, but copperheads and other venomous snake can dilate that pupil to look around, right? And then their head shape is tricky too, because most people would say, well, it's triangular, it's venomous. But these non-venomous, including Max here, he can flare his head to look triangular as a defense mechanism.
Okay.
It's just one of the very few that they have.
Yeah.
So he can actually do that with his head. Most of the non-venomous will do that. So, of course, when people see that, it's immediate.
Right. Well, that's why it's important to have the education, because like I was told things, in the 80s and 90s and stuff, and that was obviously not true based on half of our conversations so far.
Yeah, a lot of snakes get killed. Corn snakes, rat snakes, racers, garter snakes. They all, and especially decays browns, because they're small brown snakes that have a pattern. So of course people think a lot of times that's a copperhead, but a lot of non-venomous get killed because they're mistaken for it. So the IDing is important.
What other species do you have that you take for the events at the schools and stuff?
I have a corn snake, and I have a copperhead that we use to do comparisons, because copperheads and corns are pretty close.
Okay.
They're probably, in my opinion, they're the closest look-alike. Copperheads have a couple mimics. There's milk snakes and water snake, juvenile water snakes, and things like that. I'll take usually the rat snake. I'll take the corn snake. I'll take the copperhead. I also take a ball python too, because what I've learned with kids is the brighter the snake is, the more popular it is.
Okay.
But with ball pythons too, they don't move around as much. So some kids don't like the wiggling.
Right.
So especially I've done classes with special education as well. Those snakes seem to work better because they don't move around.
They just like hang out on your hand. Yeah.
But they're bright yellow, and everybody wants that one.
Yeah.
So I have a bright albino ball python.
Oh, nice.
Named Popcorn, and she's the favorite anytime I go in there. So I'll use those as the main education, just because corn snakes are native here, rat snakes are native here, and copperheads are native here. So just as any time that we can show and demo native snakes, I think it's more beneficial.
Well, and I don't think most people, they know black snakes around here. They maybe know copperheads. That's probably and garter snakes, of course. But, I didn't know that those other ones were around here. I wouldn't know how to identify them.
Yeah, corn snakes you don't see often. I mean, you really got to find them. I've lived in Virginia all my life, and I think I've found 3 in the wild.
Oh, wow.
And king snakes are like that. These guys, rat snakes, racers, garters, those are going to be your most common you see on a regular basis.
Yeah. Oh, can I pet him again?
Yeah, absolutely.
Whoa. What's up, buddy? So cool. I pet a snake, ladies and gentlemen, and it didn't scare me.
Took it off your butt.
Is there something you wish people would know more? Is what's your number one? Is it mainly snakes and just educating people, or are there specific things you want to know about other wildlife as well?
Yeah, I think in wildlife in general is just for people to know that wildlife needs to stay wild.
Yeah.
We can't take wildlife into our homes and make them pets. Even if we could, it's not a good idea.
Yeah.
A lot of these wildlife animals do not make great pets, especially The squirrel thing is a big one where people love baby squirrels because they're so little and cute.
Yeah.
But those things will wreak havoc on your house when they get older. And they're just meant to be outside. So a lot of times, even with, any type of, we've had people call about baby foxes, baby squirrels, birds, etc. We try to just tell people, leave that stuff outside. Leave it in the wild. Turtles are another one, box turtles. There was a huge time where people were just constantly taking box turtles home, keeping them as pets inside. And of course, they don't do well because they're not getting all the natural lighting and things like that.
Yeah.
They end up being deformed. And then somebody wants to give it up, and at that point, the
too late.
turtles just had years of not the right care. So people don't know how to take care of wildlife.
Yeah.
And they need to stay in wildlife. With snakes, there are certain species of snakes that just don't do well in captivity. Even if they were captive bred, they're hard to keep. But again, there's a law in Virginia about taking wildlife in anyways. So it's just something.
And most people probably don't know that. So they're just like,
don't know.
I'm just going to take it.
Yeah, they don't know. And Virginia is one of the more strict states about wildlife in general, which is a good thing. But I would say for snakes in general, just trying to educate people that these snakes are not going to do anything to you. They're not going to kill you.
Yeah.
Right? Even a copperhead bite. There's no one has died in the state of Virginia from a copperhead bite.
Oh, really?
But you still need to be cautious and know what you're getting into because, if you do take a bite and you have maybe a health condition you didn't realize, maybe that venom and that bite could escalate that condition. Younger kids, adults, older adults. And they do this too. They love to find
Take a peek
inside my shirt here. Sorry about that. But
good content.
Talking about those dark places they like to go and hide. But
I mean, you can put them away if it's easier for you. But
I'll probably just go ahead and set them back, and he's getting a little.
But thank you for bringing them. It's very very
one
cool.
more touch.
Yeah. What's up, buddy? Oh my goodness, it's so pretty. He's chill though. It definitely makes me, when I see him in the wild, it's gonna make me way less creeped out.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Yeah, sure. So I guess going back to, if I was to try to, let people know what to do with wildlife and, in general or again, not to tell people to keep the wildlife wild.
Yeah.
They're not going to do well and they don't make great pets. Plus it's the law, right? And they're just going to do much better outside and in the wild. We see a lot of cases where, with turtles.
You can pull the microphone up too.
Okay. With turtles and things like that, we have, a lot of people that will pull them out. We've seen deformed box turtles, snakes that are really skinny. They're not being taken care of a lot of times. Because people, they get these things and then they're like, well, how do I take care of it? What do I feed it? What is the lighting? Some reptiles, some snakes and things like that need UVB lighting or sunlight to grow and to, thrive. A lot of people don't do that. We got a call one time from one of the animal controls. I don't know if it was Prince William or Fairfax. And there was a guy had a venomous snake, one of probably Africa's, Asian snake that is very venomous. And the guy had passed, not from the snake bite, but had passed. And they called us to come get the snake out because it was a rhino viper, which is, it's got some massive fangs and some potent venom.
How big is it?
They can get up to about 3 foot, 3.5 feet, but they get really stocky.
Yeah.
But they're really pretty snakes. I mean, really bright colors. Quick biters. And when they bite, I mean, you're not going to probably survive that bite. They're if you had something like that in Prince William County, one, you can't, but there's no anti-venom for it around here.
Right. Only in Africa or wherever it's native to.
Yeah. So the guy actually called and they called us to come get it. And he had it set up in a octagon fish tank on purple sand. Well, these snakes obviously need something a lot bigger than that. They need a lot of humidity and things like that. So, most people get these pets or they take things out of the wild and they think putting it in an aquarium is going to be, with anything native, and it just doesn't work like that. It's not going to last.
So what do you do? Like, if you go and get that snake, what do you do? You take it to the zoo or something? Or?
Yeah, we have contacts in the air around Virginia that we can call and see if they want to add to their collection or keep. It's not something we obviously want to mess with too much. We are trained. We actually spent some time about a month ago at the Kentucky Reptile Zoo with friends of ours that own the zoo that extract venom, and they basically send that off to make anti-venom.
Yeah.
And we went down, even though we've been dealing with snakes for 25 years, we don't deal with what they deal with on a daily basis, like bombas and cobras and things like that. So anytime we can go down and get training on things like that, it's good to have in case animal control does call us and say, hey, we got a black mamba in the basement of this guy's house.
Right. So what is legal to have in Virginia?
Well, it all goes to, I mean, really having any type of venomous snake is not really legal unless you're permitted for it. There's some individuals that, may have permitting for education purposes. They could be, using for research purposes and things like that. Mm-hmm. But Virginia being such a strict state on wildlife in general and having venomous snakes, you just can't have them. You can go across to Maryland and these other states and purchase things, which I think a lot of times, but you can also go online and order pretty much whatever you want.
Yeah.
And then they end up finding out, well, I can't take care of this thing. And even if you could, do you have, the proper tools to do it? Do you have anti-venom? Do you even, if you were to bit, do you even know how to give that anti-venom to yourself? Probably not. Right.
So is it just a shot, or how is it normally given?
Yeah, it has to be administered by someone that knows what they're doing. It's not something you can just go and stick in your arm,
like an EpiPen or something.
Yeah. So it's a lot of times folks that are that own these venomous snakes aren't that prepared.
Yeah,
anti-venom is very expensive, and to have it on site and be able to administer it yourself, chances are most of them probably don't do that.
I mean, I would not get a venomous snake without anti-venom, right? That's kind of pretty stupid.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I've always thought, I'm like, oh man, I love Gaboon vipers are my favorite species of snake, but they have the longest fangs in the world of any snake.
How long? Like a couple inches?
About 2.5 to 3 inches. I mean, they're huge. And a bite from something like that, you're not gonna make it.
How quickly would you die?
I mean, it would be within probably an hour or less, depending on, again, your condition,
Yeah.
We've had, multiple people that will reach out. So when someone gets bit here locally by like a copperhead, I love going and talking to them about their experience, because everybody seems to have a different story. Right. And we had, I think it was 2 summers ago, there was an individual went over to pick actually 2 copperheads out of their yard. And the husband, was a ex-military, big guy, big tough. I mean, I wouldn't mess with him. Yeah. But he got bit, and he's like, no, I'm not going to go to the hospital. And I said, well, I strongly suggest you do.
Yeah.
Right? Even though you may not be feeling anything right now, the effects could come on, later on. And he's like, I think I'm okay. And then he ended up in the hospital that night.
Oh, wow.
ER, because he was throwing up, sick. His wife said he was just in intense pain and just miserable. And I said, yeah, I mean, some people will, and it also depends on what if the copperhead delivers a lot of venom. Yeah. They can regulate it, so they know what they're doing. They use that venom to eat. They don't constrict and swallow like rat snakes, so they have to have that venom.
So it's like a warning shot almost sometimes?
Yeah, and then sometimes you can get bit and not be envenomated at all. But it's always good to get to the hospital just to make sure in case, you do have, because, if you have a heart condition or you have something, something else going on, chances are it might escalate that problem.
And everyone's symptoms are different, or are there like similar things? If a copperhead bites, this is usually what's going to happen.
Yeah, they're pretty, let's see. The sick feeling or being nauseating is everybody gets it. Burning, the bite itself starts to burn or sting a little bit. I've had individuals that said they've lost consciousness.
Oh, wow.
And that might be just because of the stress that they're going through.
Being in shock a little bit too.
You're in shock, you just got bit by a snake. And one of the rules that we try to throw out to people is if you get bit, don't overexert yourself.
Because it pushes the blood through your system. Yeah.
But it's
counterintuitive.
They'll look at me like, what do you mean? I just got bit and I'm freaking out. And it's like, well, you doing that's actually making it worse. But if you can, or if you have someone with you that's been bit, to keep them as calm as possible. So that way it's not, that venom's in your system. It's moving. So just get to the hospital as quick as you can. Yeah.
And so that's like the most that you've talked to is just for copperheads around here?
Yeah, we do timbers occasionally. We'll get calls about those. The good news is they both have pretty much the same venom. So doctors in the area can treat it with the same anti-venom if you were to be bit. There's very few timber bites in this area. We can't use them for education. We can't display them just based on state law. But they are really cool snakes. And again, a lot of people think these copperheads and timbers are really aggressive and they're out. And if you get around them, they're going to bite you. Yeah, if you mess with them, they are. But they really are placid snakes. I mean, when we go to events and we'll have a copperhead on display, a lot of people think that snake is fake because it never moves.
Oh, yeah.
It's an ambush predator. It's staying still. It's waiting for prey to come to it. And they're like, that thing's not even moving. And then it'll flick its tongue. And then they're like, oh, it is. So they're very placid. And most of the copperheads we relocate or move very rarely strike. I mean, there's a couple that I've had, over the years where they're just ornery and just don't want to be messed with at all.
Right.
And then there's some where we're, tonging them or hooking them, put them in a bucket.
They're just like, whatever.
And they're just whatever, kind of just let me go and so I can do my thing.
So with the tongs, like how far are you keeping yourself away, or is there a certain place that you grab them to make it safer for you?
Yeah. So the tongs we use, I have ones that are about 48 inches long.
Okay.
So it keeps a good 3 to 4 foot span. While we have boots on and things like that to protect our legs and feet.
What about stuff in your hands?
I use gloves,
Yeah.
but they're not necessarily bite-proof gloves.
Right.
But just like maintenance gloves and things like that. And then we go in and try to. I try not to use the tongs as often as I do the hooks. The tongs, even though we have a certain type of tong we use that has a flatter head on it to where when you pick that snake up and you clamp down,
not hurting it.
It's kind of distributing the pressure across the vertebrae, because you can easily break a rib or a vertebrae with a snake.
Yeah.
And even with that, it's still putting pressure. And I've seen people use tongs and not the right way, where that snake has probably had some damage or something like that. I'll use a hook if I can. Tongs are good for if a copperhead is hanging out by a little hole where it's been going in and out of. Like if you have like holes on the side of your walkways of your house or by your garage.
I have one right there. Is that a snake?
No, probably not. Probably something else, like a groundhog or something like that. But I'll use a tong for that just because they're quick, and once you've kind of touched them a little bit, they will dart back into there. So
right.
The tongs are helpful to grab them, so that way I'm not having to search another 2 hours for the snake.
Right, just waiting for it to pop its head out, essentially, which could be forever.
Yeah, and I use when I bring my snakes out of their enclosures, I'll use a hook and practice. It's all muscle memory for me.
Yeah,
that's just the way I work. So even though they're not venomous, I will pretend, like today when I brought Max out, I'll open up the door and he'll come on out. But I'll use a hook and just hook him and just take the back of him, and then like I'm kind of hooking, and that way I can practice doing that. Because over time, if you're not working with it long enough,
like over the winter, you're not
you just
getting any calls.
Kind of polish it off a little bit, making sure you're holding the hook correctly so the copperhead's not slipping off the hook.
Yeah.
And things like that.
So what kind of enclosures do you have for the snakes that you own?
Max is in a nice big 6 foot by 4 foot by 2 foot. So he's got
with a heat lamp and everything too.
He's got everything he needs in there. So he can stretch out really well. And then I'm a big vision guy for vision cages, and they're just lightweight, easy to clean. I've never had an issue with them, warping or fading or anything. I've had them for years.
Oh, cool.
And they're just nice. They keep the humidity in a little bit more. But, they all got their little.
Have you ever had one escape?
Yes. So I'm not proud of it because I went I've gone probably, how long has it been? 20 years. So when my wife and I got married, it's a funny story. When I first got my first reptile, she made me sign a contract.
Okay.
That said, okay, if you get a reptile, you can't scare me with it. You can't bring it out when my friends are over. You have to keep it in. And it was a written contract. I think we still have it somewhere. But up until about a year and a half ago, I had never had any reptile escape from any of the enclosures.
Oh.
So I was getting ready to head out to a birthday party, and I went in to grab, and this is when I had a few other snakes in my office. And I went in and I was going to grab my Kenyan sand boa because they're pretty snakes. They got yellow, browns, and grays in them and things like that. And I went in and I noticed that the back corner of the cage, and this was a cage where the lid, you had to reinforce the lid so they couldn't pop it off. The cages I have today, you can't get out. I mean, you're not going to get out. Well, I noticed the back corner was popped up. And I'm like, maybe it's just, maybe not. Maybe it's still in there. I went, put my hand through there, couldn't find it. I'm like, oh man. And my wife, of course, is in the other room, and I'm
like that contract
for this party, you know. And I told her, look, I'm sorry. This is the first time it's ever happened, but this snake's out, and I have to go because I was already late for the birthday party.
Yeah.
So I get going down the road, and she calls, and she's like, I found it. And I'm like, oh, thank God. So it was actually out in the living room, so right next to the office, in the entertainment center behind the DVDs. I don't know how long. It could have been out for about 2 or 3 days.
Oh, wow.
But I have a picture of it. She sent me the picture and actually went and got a hook and hooked it and put it in the box.
She did?
And then she brought it out to the party.
So she's gotten cool with it.
She tolerates it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's more.
But she's not scared.
No, she won't hold them. She's held one snake, and that was basically her holding a ball python, and I'm holding her hands underneath. That was about as close as it gets. But she's... I have 2 girls, and they're not into really. My oldest is actually working towards being a veterinarian.
Oh, cool. So, is that part of your, having them around? Maybe she got some interest in it.
She wasn't a big animal person growing up. She liked animals like any other kid.
Yeah.
She wasn't like big time into wildlife and things like that. And then one day she comes home, and she's like, "I'm a major in biology." I'm like, "Awesome."
Yeah, that's great.
And so they're not fond of snakes, but other wildlife,
Yeah.
But they tolerate it. They're not scared of them.
Okay.
And it's because, and they've even said it's because they know about it. And because I talk about it all the time, and they know there isn't anything to really be scared about.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Like, my mom is deathly scared of spiders. When she sees me petting a snake, she's going to go crazy. Speaking of, you said squirrels. Is it bad to give a squirrel peanuts? Because she gives peanuts to this one squirrel outside their house. She doesn't have it as a pet. But
yeah, I don't. I mean, I think that peanuts.
Or is there something better?
Fine. Well, the problem with feeding squirrels in general is once you start doing it, they're coming back because they know.
Yeah.
This is easy.
Right.
And then next thing you know it, some people have them as pets outside. They'll climb up their leg and feed them.
Yeah, it's not that far. It's like, so we were over for Mother's Day, and one comes up on the steps, and she gives him some peanuts, and he, just chews them up.
It's not horrible for him. I'm sure there's a better diet for him.
Yeah.
But,
We'll have to figure that part out.
Yeah.
So is there like one favorite animal that you have? Not just that you own, but like that you think is like the coolest, maybe snake or other animal?
Yeah, I mean, right now all I have are snakes. We have a couple leopard geckos that my youngest daughter takes care of. I think out of my snakes that I have currently today, I only have about 9 of them right now, where I used to have 30 or 40 at one point. I think Max is probably my favorite.
Yeah.
Just because, one, he's a native snake. People like to see that black snake up front,
right,
up close, because they're too scared to approach it in the wild.
Yeah.
He's got a really cool black tongue, and I just think that he's done so much education with me.
Yeah.
Over the last 3 or 4 years. I'm probably closer to him than anything. People love anything big, anything colorful. But with him being a black snake, it's just because of his size, and he's just very placid.
Well, yeah, and I think that it's most people that do like the reptile encounters or whatever, they're not native to here at all. So it's like good to see because a black snake of some sort is going to be what you're going to see most of the time when you see a snake around here,
Right.
like any larger snake.
Yeah, and I love the companies that we have around that are doing education with exotic snakes and things like that.
Yeah.
I think it's great that they're educating, people on different things. I think we all have our kind of focus points, and mine's more of just the nature of the wild in Virginia, just so people aren't killing things. But again, having those individuals doing educational stuff like that helps people with when they want to get a pet.
Right.
Providing a lot more information on housing and things like that.
Yeah.
Because it is.
Back on the snapping turtles. There was another huge one like off Cat Harbin Road that we saw last summer. And, people were just driving around it. But I was going to go back and like see if I could scooch him off the road or something. Yep. But by the time I got there, he was gone.
Yeah, I tell people to keep like a snow shovel. If you have a snow shovel, car mats, if you have like cardboard or anything like that, you can put the turtle or scoot it underneath them and then just pull them across the road.
Okay, yeah.
Worst case scenario, you could drag it by the back of the shell if you needed to, a bigger snapping turtle.
Yeah.
The snappers, what they'll do is when they know you're there, they're going to spin and they're going to turn so they were focused on you the entire time. So if you were to try to go behind them, they'll spin and keep eyes on you.
Oh, really?
So when you go to pick them up, you got to be quick about it and just go around back. You're probably going to get peed on, most likely.
Yeah.
But if you slide your hand underneath their carapace, which is the bottom of the turtle, on a snapper, your hand actually will fit. It's almost like made to be picked up that way.
Okay.
It's, the way their carapace is shaped. You can put your hand right up underneath there and just pick them straight up. And then the only thing you have to worry about is those claws a lot of times. So safest probably way to do it is to find something you can push them off the road if it's a bigger turtle.
Yeah.
Back of the shell, but you still got to watch out for those claws. Right.
You ever been cut by one?
I've been bit by younger snappers when I was trying to remove fishing hooks and things like that. Not from an adult.
Yeah.
I mean, I try to get to it as quick as possible, get it before it even knows what I'm doing.
Yeah.
A lot of times what people do is hesitate. And by that point, that turtle knows you're there to probably cause harm or do something to it.
Right.
And it's just, it's intimidating. I mean, because when they snap, it's
intense.
Yeah, they don't like it. I'm like, well, then just try to scoot it. Or if you have something in your car that you can maybe try to push it across, you know, it's not the best case, but it's better, getting hit.
Are any of these like sort of endangered or very like you don't see them very often?
No, box turtles are listed as like a turtle of concern, what they call is. So again, there's laws about keeping box turtles as pets. There's laws about hitting anything, killing any wildlife is illegal. People hitting it with their car and things like that. The box turtles are not endangered. But, if things continue, they could be.
Really?
Snappers are a little bit more protected as well. You can't use those for demos, and you can't use them for, any type of like educational setup unless you're a rehabber and you have a license for that type of stuff. But using those types of animals, we use box turtles occasionally that are in rehab for education. Snapping turtles are just hard. They're messy. They're big.
Yeah.
And frankly, they scare most people just because they look.
Yeah, they're like dinosaurs.
They're like little dinosaurs.
Yeah. So like, where do you see like the next development of moving into the 501c3? You're going to try to like get people to donate to it, or like fundraise, or how do you see like that next evolution going?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about. I mean, we've been talking about going to a nonprofit for probably about a year and a half.
Okay,
and we finally decided to. Mark and I and Bonnie decided let's just do it. I mean, most of the work we're doing is nonprofit related anyways.
Right.
We're not charging a lot unless we do like a home inspection where we have snakes in the house, things like that. And even then, the money, it really covers our gear and our gas and things like
Right.
that. We don't profit from anything since we started K2C anyways. I think the nonprofit will help us kind of open up opportunities for,
Yeah.
Partnering with other organizations too.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like when you have a company, especially with at least what I've kind of experienced with wildlife is, if you're a company with wildlife, you're doing it for the money or you're doing it to profit and make a business out of it.
Yeah.
Where a lot of these wildlife organizations are nonprofits and they're doing it because they care and they worry about the animal or the being of the animal. So I think it will open up some doors for us. I hope, to be able to do that. I have a friend of mine that went to Osborne as well.
Mm-hmm.
And he lives in Colorado, and he and I have been talking here recently about there was a copperhead study we were going to do a couple years ago, and it basically is just tracking copperheads, putting trackers in them, and having them on a property where we can track to see their movements and things like that. And that's something that kind of went dormant for a while. But with projects like that, we may have an opportunity to start that back up.
Yeah.
And with that,
If
and
businesses can
nonprofits-
write off what they're donating to you,
Right,
then
right.
You'll probably make more money than just having residential people pay
Right.
a couple $100 for
Yeah,
something.
and I think it'll open up some opportunities for grants, opportunities too. So I do think that this is the right move.
Yeah, it seems like it, especially since you're more concerned about the education piece anyway and conservation.
Right.
It seems like a good move. So, is there anything that you want to make sure that people know, like as we're wrapping up here? Is there any like last piece of advice or education that you have?
I think I encourage people to attend as much education on wildlife as they can. I mean, there's a lot of rehabbing organizations that provide trainings. They provide classes, informational sessions. Go out and learn as much as you can about the wildlife. I think, learning that there are strict regulations in Virginia around wildlife that we have to follow, right? You can't remove animals and relocate them, right? I think it's, when it comes to snakes specifically, is just getting people to understand that these snakes are not here to harm you. Mm-hmm. They're not going to kill you. They frankly just don't want to be messed with. And if you leave them alone and let them do their thing, it's fine. And killing them is really kind of depleting the resources that we have around here. I mean, most of these snakes are pest controls.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you look at the venomous snakes that are being used. The venom is actually being, used to help us, from a medical perspective. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's snake venom that's being used, to help fight cancer.
Oh, really?
There's like cobra venom right now. King cobra venom right now is being worked to use as another source of painkillers.
Really?
Things like that. They've got some.
No more fentanyl, finally.
Yeah, yeah, and they've got some that'll that are helping with like chemo treatments for cancer.
Wow.
Things like that. So once you explain kind of the, there's a certain community in and around Prince William County or right outside of Prince William County that we probably get the most flack for, that everything we post in that community is kill, 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 right?
Oh, yeah.
But once you actually go and educate, of course, that's the challenge that I have. It's like when I see stuff like that, I'm going after that, and that's what I'm going to focus on.
Yeah.
Once you have a little 60-minute session to explain, how these guys can benefit the environment and us, most people then, look at it like, oh, well, I didn't know that. And again, it's the lack of education for that. So
and hopefully people watch this too, which is a longer form, education piece. They see the snake. That's why I wanted to have it at the beginning, because it's like, oh, maybe I'll start watching this,
Right. Yeah. And in any of the events we have a K2C website. We have an event page out there where we have up and coming events. We have an event actually here next Friday, the 23rd, for World Turtle Day.
Okay.
So we had a pond off Lucasville. Mm-hmm. Back in 2023, the city of Manassas was going to drain the pond and improve it. And I was part of a group that got to remove all the wildlife from that pond, and we removed over 1,100 turtles out of that pond.
Wow. Where do you put them?
In the adjacent ponds down from them. So there was so that water system there ends up down at Bull Run River eventually.
Okay.
Well, next Friday on the 23rd, we're gonna have we're trapping the turtles that we put in the other ponds, and we're gonna re-release them back into the new improved pond.
Oh, cool.
Friday. And I'll be there with Max. Will be there with a few other snakes, and we're gonna do educational talks on the hour from 10 to 1.
Okay.
And those are the types of things that people should go out and take advantage of, so they can learn about not just snakes, but just wildlife in general.
Yeah, you guys have Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff?
We do.
Okay.
Yeah. So just K2C Wildlife on Facebook, and then our website, has the information out there on services we provide or events that are coming up and things like that.
Okay, awesome.
And we do go out and we'll talk to HOAs and schools. And
I actually know a president of a HOA not far from Lucasville. Maybe I'll get him to
have
you come there.
There's a lot of postings for snakes in these communities,
Yeah.
know, and we don't necessarily, because we don't live in the community, we don't have access to those pages.
Right.
And so we try to get that through a contact to say, hey, if you ever want to do something, we'll be happy to come in and bring some snakes. And
yeah, he's one of my best friends, so I'll definitely tell him about you.
Yeah.
And he's right off Godwin, like the main, one of the main complexes off Godwin. So, well, thank you for coming today, and thanks for Max for coming. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
We'll talk to you soon.
All right, thank
Thanks.
you.